This is an open letter to Senator Bernie Sanders. Hello, sir. How are you? Hope everything is fine. Merry Christmas, New Year, whatever. Salute. Here's the thing, sir. I recently saw 2 interviews from you with a contradictory situation. I thought I'd bring it up. Contradictory points of view that you have on this situation, on 2 situations. They're basically contradicting each other. Here's how it works. On interview with one of your interviews with Jon Stewart, you said that I wanted to bring something to vote, so we don't, deal with Israel anymore. We don't sell anything to weapons to them, and I couldn't reach 20% who would vote in favor of that. And when Jon Stewart said, why? You're basically saying they're worried about their political careers. This is what your perspective is, that because the senators are worried about their political careers, they cannot vote their conscience. So they vote what is more beneficial to their political career, in which you explain that, if they vote against Israel is going to invest heavily on whoever comes up against them, and they have a big chance of losing. We can argue that if people were more educated, like people in Sweden or Finland that are educated, you can't really force a politician upon them by just more advertisement, but since it's not no Japanese education or Norwegian education system, so people buy into advertising a lot more than a well-informed society. So this happens. So you said they don't want to kill their political careers. I want to put a quote around careers that you used over here. They don't want to, put a big question mark on their careers as politicians, as senators, as representatives, because they don't want to do that. They don't vote against Israel. So I could only come up with 19 senators who would stop selling weapons to Israel. Not even 20%. So, and you said the reason. They're worried about their careers. But then, apparently, you're on record. I saw another interview of yours. You're on record that's saying that you don't believe with term limits. Well, the solution to a political career is term limits. Here's the thing, sir. Please don't look in the mirror and say, hey, I'm a good guy. Term limits should not be imposed on me because I'm a good guy. So with all due respect, if there is a situation in which 99% of the society are abusing a situation and only 1% don't abuse the situation, you don't say, no, we don't need a law for this because 1% are holding back and not abusing the system. Because the 1% are not abusing it, we don't need a law for it. No, when you say abuse is taking place a lot, you come up with a law. If 99% are abusing, if let's say 95% of senators are abusing their position, or as you say, they cannot vote their conscience, then you need a law to force them to vote their conscience, or at least not tie their hands because they have chosen a career. If your hands are not tied because it's either this or go raise chickens, if their hands are not tied, you know how you untie people's hands from worrying about their career? This is how you untie their hand. You give them term limits. You say, hey, you can only be 2 terms, maybe 2 5-year terms. Good for you as a senator. 5 years, 6 years, I don't know what your term is. But my point is this. At this point, I'm talking to Chad and Nigeria and Algeria, that they also should have term limits. Because it just makes more sense. You see, when you have term limits, fresh minds come in. Nobody starts their very few start their political career at 50, like Trump. Very few. You see, very few start their career. But if there is no term limits, you force them not to go into politics as a career. The result is that they will vote their conscience all the time. Yes, he knows that he has to leave Senate by law because of term limits at this date. He already knows what that date is. So he, comes up with another, if he likes to stay in politics, maybe he goes back to state politics. He goes into another state's politics. Again, but the same seat is not there. You see what I'm saying? A transient politician is going to be much more truthful, truth-seeking, conscience voting than a career politician. No, I think political position, not politics. You can go from federal to state, from state back to federal, move around, run for different offices. But every office, here's the thing, Mr. Senator Sanders, sir, if it's good enough for presidency, term limits, it's good enough for the Senate and it's good enough for the House. Yeah, I understand, but here's the thing. We already know that representatives are not going to vote themselves out of office. Sort of like, yes, it's a good idea. I've come here. I have 50 years of, look at Alexandra Ocasio-Cortez. She's looking in the mirror and saying that I have 30 years of political career to look at. So I made a splash, but now I'm going to tread lightly. So I can keep my seat for career. So she has lost a lot of her firebrand. But you see, Marjorie Taylor Greene hasn't lost any of her firebrand because she's not looking at it as a career. She has come in late because these motherfuckers over there are not doing a good job. So she had to leave her Georgia and go over there, see who's not doing things right. Again, she's not looking at the career because she's come into it at the end of her career. She was in construction or something. But Miss Ocasio-Cortez is coming in at the beginning. Okay, this is good. Nobody says it's bad. Everything is good. But term limits first makes her sharp because her legacy is going to be left in 2 terms, period. She's going to be sharp because there's an exit date. She wants to have a legacy of that term, 2 terms that she has had. She wants to, make a clean record of it because it ends. She can then move, if she can win, move to the Senate or move to the state political bodies, but has to move around. Again, she doesn't lose her sharpness, she doesn't lose her fire, because what is she going to be threatened with? Lack of a career in politics? We already knew she has a 4-year career as a representative, period. That's not a career, so she knows it's a transient position. Therefore, she gets to vote her conscience every time. She doesn't mellow with time and eventually turn black like like Mrs. Pelosi. Not black, but turned green. But I'm sorry, did I say black? I meant green. Here's the Mrs. Pelosi. Salute. I mean, you turned green. I mean, I understand she's multi-millionaire with income that, apparently it's not. I read this somewhere that many of the representatives and senators, their income and their wealth from where they started to where they are, they don't match. And this is a result of a career. But if it was 4 years, and it cuts into a lot of bullshit as well. Because first, lobbyists are not going to be, babysitters. You see, lobbyists don't want to babysit. They don't want to have to go reintroduce themselves to the new representative, Ocasio-Cortez, who just arrived from Brooklyn. You see what I'm saying? They don't want to deal with that, so they rather buy one and hold on to it and raise it. Don't have to deal with the kid every time. Slowly bring him or her into the brothels and into the orgies. They don't have to do that. You see, here's the thing, Mr. Sanders. The telltale sign, proof to my word, is the kid who came to as a representative for 2 years on wheelchair. And he came in, was well spoken, this and that. But then as a newbie, as a green kid, this is what you want, a green politician. In order to cut back against corruption, you need half of the House of Representatives to be brand new fucking green every year. Every 2 years, half of the House of Representatives has to be brand new, fresh out of the field. They come in from the field with good ideas, with new ideas, not good ideas, new ideas. You try everything. It's trial and error until you get it. But the thing with Israel is it's error. You keep pushing the same error button. There's no trial and error with Israel. It's just trial for 5 years. You've been doing the same thing with Israel. So no, we are not going to try anything else. We're going to just try this. Boom, 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 boom. For 75 years, Israel has been bombing all the neighborhood. And I'm thinking to myself, of course you need term limits. Because, first of all, these people don't get greedy. They come in green, and before they turn red, they leave as green. But you know what green is? Green is life. Green is ideas. They bring hundreds of ideas to the table, and then they run it up to the Senate. The senators, again, if at least a quarter of them are green, when you do every 5 years or 6 years, a smaller portion are going to be green. But you keep bringing fresh blood. There's going to be green there, so basically the laws can move with people. Where people are not too forward with this sexual business, and not too backwards with, move with people. In order to move with people, you have to have fresh blood from the field often. Fresh ideas from the field often. You look at some of these representatives, these senators, forgive me, sir, you're one of them, but you are more in touch with your people than a lot of other senators. Again, we're going back to 1%. If 1% behave, you don't say, no, we don't need a law with this regard because 1% are behaving. I'm sorry, then you're a problem too if you don't recognize this. Here's the thing, sir. I understand you don't want to vote yourself out of office, but there are other ways to, let's put it this way. I can imagine a Bernie Sanders institution in Vermont that after your, 12 years of 2 terms as a senator or 10 years or whatever it is, you go and still youngish, you want to be in politics and you like to, get the message across. So you put up an institution, Bernie Sanders institution, in which any representative who is green comes right out of the field, goes in before going to take her seat in the federal level or in the state level, comes to the institution, and you just give some information, share statistics, and I'm sure they became representatives because they had fresh ideas, and they don't mind executing fresh ideas because they're not looking as a career. They don't get scared of losing their seat because there's a date that they have to lose their seat. So there also shows that they will be determined and they will not sell out. So, maybe a vote against a genocide would have more than 19 senators in favor. Salute. Sir, you see the problem. You can't get even 20% of the senators to vote for a sane idea, and that is keep the gun away from the crazy guy. Keep the guns away from the crazy guy. That's that whole idea of Democratic Party that or many of Republicans that red flag laws. If the guy's crazy, he may he shouldn't have easy access to guns. The same thing applies to countries. If the Israelis are acting like maniacs, maybe you should take away the guns. That's a sane idea. But you say you can't get even 20% of the senators to back it. Because you said it yourself, because they're worried about their careers. What if they already know how long their career in Senate is going to be, so they're not worried about that? And after that, they're going to be at the state level. After their 2 terms as a senators, they're going to go back at state level, either their own state or another state. So they won't really be worried about the Israeli lobby at the state level, because no one cares at the state level. Or they don't worry about the chicken lobby at federal level, because as a governor, he doesn't have to deal with the same people, the same lobbyists that he has voted against. You see what I'm saying? It's the whole thing goes together. You don't want lobbyists who are on first term basis with lawmakers for 50 years, for 40 years. They get the lobbyists and the representative are so tight for so long that they eventually marry into each other. Who hasn't heard of political class and top political class and top economical class not intermarrying? Often it happens in this system of capitalism. Before this, it happened under the kingdoms and under the feudal system, that again money and political class, and they become so close, the political class and the economic class become so close that they often intermarry. Because way back when, politicians go, like money, and rich people like to have power. So my point is this: just please don't look at us and say, no, I am that 1% that I don't do any hanky-panky with the lobbyists, and I'm clean, therefore there shouldn't be any law against me, except I heard this is what you said, that you said we already have term limits. It's called elections. No, not when there's so many people, so few people are selected by the parties and funded by the parties. If the party machine, which is already owned by a lot of rich people, the party machine. Do I have to remind you what happened with you and Mrs. Clinton? Salute. No, I don't have to remind you that, eventually rich people want to get close to politicians to get their way. With regards to laws, get more on their plate and less on other people's plate, from their customers to their employees to their brother, whoever. You take less in your plate because I want to get more in my plate. This is how they became rich. This is how they became rich, by accumulating a little extra productivity from everybody else. Therefore you become rich, wealthy. This is the productivity of every member of the society. Those you have economic contact with, you have taken a little bit of their productivity into your pile, so you become rich. So my point is this is a non-relevant distribution of resources. When people don't have enough funds to finance their children's education, but somebody has a super tanker as a yacht, that shows this productivity of society is not being distributed properly. You don't have to go to World War III because your rich people don't want to share. Of course, if the rich people continue not wanting to share, the rest of the planet has to go to some kind of war world. So, a lot of people die. So, whoever remains there's enough resources for whatever remains. But the rich people don't have to fork over a little more. My point is this, sir. You have the solution. You have the solution. You said the problem, according to you said that the problem is these people don't want to lose their career. The solution, what if they have already lost their career? What if there is no losing to be had? What if it's just, this is your term limit? You stayed there for 4 years or 8 years or 12 years. You did your best. You voted your conscience. Here's the thing, with regards to Bernie Sanders Institute, sir, after many 10, 12 years in the Senate, you go back to Vermont, you open up institutions, Bernie Sanders Institution, into informing the green politicians who are about to go in and all fired up, inform them with statistics and see what the solutions that they have in their mind. Does it work with the statistics? Does it work with the model? If it doesn't, they have to tweak it so it would do. And then with a more tweaked, more representative model, they go and take their seat in the House or in the Senate. Yes, you will have a lot of green people. And that's a good thing. They're coming from the field with new ideas. That's what you want. But again, and soon, before they become dirty, before they get into being on first name with a lot of lobbyists, they're out of there. So you know what happens? Then the lobby business goes out of business, because nobody wants to babysit, and then because you can't keep everybody's mouth shut. Back to that politician, the green politician. Young guy on wheelchair, he went to House of Representatives. He came out and say, hey, they were trying to corrupt me. I was invited to a couple of orgies with these old men. It was like me, 20 something, and the rest are like 40, 50, 60, 70, and they're all in the orgy, and they basically form a mob there. And he came out and he talked about it and said, this is a bad idea. These people are compromising each other, so they all have to vote the same way as a group because they were all present at the orgy. This is what he was trying to say. And within 2 years, He was out. I bet, sir, if I think Cawthorn, called something, Madison something, Coltrate or Coltford. Here's the thing: they were able to get rid of this Madison guy who was trying to be truthful and ring the warning bell that these people have compromised each other, and they all, will make up somebody will make up their mind for them, and everybody will vote the same way in order to please that somebody who knows all their secrets. Come on, man. Or who funds their opponents. You said funding their opponents is bad for their careers. If they didn't had to worry about their career, they could be truthful. Here's the thing, sir, Mr. Bernie Sanders, the empire is shooting it through these actions that, let's just say, most of the planet doesn't approve of. That's why you have to keep using the veto power in the United Nations so often. And you send a black guy in there, or a black woman, or a black man, sort of like trying to play some kind of a, oh, you see, this is a black guy vetoing, spitting in your face the whole plan. You're turning to 9 billion, including the like 80% of the population of the United States that are against any kind of massacre. But the massacre is nevertheless being done, and most of the people at home also are not happy with it, and the rest of the world through United Nations has voted against it. So Uncle Sam's manager sent a guy in a black face in to raise the veto and pretend that this black guy is voting for black people. This guy is a symbol of, the black guys or black women are basically at this point in the history of the planet, they're the face of victimhood. They are, because they have been victim. Whether they're in Africa, colonized, in America, traded, moved around, had to endure a lot of war that it was funded by Europeans and North Americans. And so you have a guy, especially let's look for a black guy or a black woman, and that's the face of victimhood, which they are actually, but we use it to our advantage, and we do we show our middle finger to the rest of the population of the planet. Why? Because we have been in an orgy, all of us. We had a great time, and the guy who had thrown the orgy, he knows us, and he has all the pictures, so we cannot vote our conscience. We have to vote whatever that guy who threw the orgy, whatever he has in mind. Are you kidding me? If you had term limits, you think such situation would arise? No. If you had term limits, imagine half of the House of Representatives are Madison Cartwright. Imagine half of the House of Representatives. It's a 2-year term, right? It's a 2-year duration, and then there's another. Let's say you give them 3 term limits. They can become representative for 3 times. Remember, the president can only be chosen for 2 terms. House being 3 terms is generous because it's a 2-year stint. But the point is this: term limits means that you get at least half of the house is going to be, maybe at least a third of the house every year. Every 2 years, a third of the house is going to turn over, and they're all going to be green. These greens are going to bring fresh blood to the floor. That means a lot of the bad things, corrupt things would come out quite fast. The same way, imagine that plot of the Training Day. Why go far? Plot of the movie Training Day is the green guy basically came in and he almost died, but the point is he came in and he himself was able to have bring a fresh perspective to the table, to a table of a bunch of corrupt cops. But imagine if he wasn't alone. It was like half the group was green. Again, because of numbers, then the fresh blood, if their numbers are high enough, if there is a term limit, if new blood comes in, things cannot remain dirty for long. Information will come out, people will talk, and that brings clarity. And yes, many of the older corrupt guys have to resign. Instead of Madison going back home with his tail between his leg for ratting out these old corrupt officials, representatives who frequent orgies, being in an orgy is a liability. Still, with the morals that we have, being an orgy is a liability. So tell me, why is it acceptable to have any kind of orgies in Washington or in New York? These places, unless people are okay with having these liabilities. They want to have fun and they will do whatever is asked of them. Whoever has the biggest dick, these guys will do whatever is asked of them, because they want to, they want to have a good life. They don't want their liabilities to surface. So my point is this, sir. There is no way to prevent the rich people from wanting to get close to power, because, that's how they become richer, or they are helped into reaching their goals. Now, their goals might not be good for the society as a whole, but rich people are not the wisest people. They're just better at counting beans. But my point is this, my point is this, sir. The only solution is term limits. Period. You can prevent all this corruption. You cannot prevent the money trying to get close to politics. You cannot help that. Eventually it will happen. The only thing you can do is keep the politicians transient. So the money would not work out. The money would leave the table. If the politicians are all transient, the money will leave the table by itself, because it's not worth it. A lot of times shit will come out, and liabilities, people don't care. Young ones don't care about liabilities, and it will come out, and shit hits the fan. And if enough of them come out, like Mr. Madison, then the old fogies, the old corrupt fogies, have to go back home. This time it was only Madison. He came out and he had to go back home. Again, term limits make sure there are many more Madisons, and the whole system eventually cleans up. Before these greens become really ripe and have liabilities, they're out of there because of the term limits. You really want to fix your democracy? This is it. This is it. Term limits. Reasonable term limits. Starting from presidency, 2 terms, okay. Senators, 2 terms, okay. Representatives, 3 terms. Salute. And this career thing is exactly, Mr. Sanders, this career thing is what eventually takes the politician away from reality. From what the prices are, how economics is important for the families, what is the living condition of the family. This is a senator from such and such a state who has been a senator for 30, 40, 50 years, and the last time he was out shopping in Walmart was 30 years ago. Or the last time he had to actually worry about how much is in his wallet and can he pay his rent or not, it was 40 years ago. For such a politician, suddenly Ukraine seems to be a very life or death situation, but whether we get the last say in Ukraine or the Ruskies. Well, they're the Ruskies' neighbors, so I guess the Ruskies have to have a last say, because you with Mexico you and Mexico have the last say. You don't want the Russians to have any kind of say between you and Mexico, do you? Well, the Russians don't want you having any say between them and their neighbors, which is Ukraine. Again, all these problems are solved if there is term limits and politicians come fresh off the field. They know that Ukraine is not as important as my uncle. I just left him. He's doing some Uber after teaching in school. He does some extra Uber. I'm sorry, sir. I had these teachers that they were so overworked that teaching was one of their job, and then they had other jobs that they did. These never turn out to be good teachers. A teacher that has to worry about his or her expenses and has to have extra jobs. Exactly how much energy do you think a person has to spend hours with kids and then go and attend another job? My point is that these would be known to representatives who are fresh off from the field. They come in from the states to the federal level on a limited time, for a limited time, know what the problems in the streets are and vote accordingly, because they don't look at their political sting as a career. And then you will get at least 90% of the Senate voting to stop sending weapons to both Ukraine and Israel, because it doesn't make any fucking sense. What are you trying to prove? I'm like, you're trying to prove that your empire has such a reach, and their empire, their neighborhood, they don't have that reach. Okay, what? And then what? BlackRock is happy then? BlackRock, beside Israel, BlackRock is is a privately owned institution that apparently none of the politicians can say no to. No, I'm sorry, did I say none? I meant 95%. You got AIPAC, and you have BlackRock, and you have White Castle. Sir, to clean up politics, it has to be term limits. I'm sorry that you're part of the 1% who hasn't abused your seat, but when 90% are abusing their seats because they look at it as a career, then some laws have to be enacted. But here's the thing, sir. I know nobody can expect politicians to vote themselves out of their seat. So the only solution for this is states, people, just like the way they went about marijuana. People have to vote for a term limit for politicians. So just like they gather signatures for marijuana and other things that people wanted, they should start gathering signatures to put a term limit on every state, as well as the representatives that they send to the Senate and the House. The states, the people of the states have to bring this to vote and vote on it and impose a term limit on all the representatives. Again, with the proper chart and information, all the representatives overnight get a term limit starting from day zero, or from their last election that I was elected, starting from there. This is the only way to get this done, and it has to be done, sir. If you want to serve your empire, sir, if you want to save your empire, this has to be done. Because at this point, a lot of these representatives and senators, they're shooting themselves in the foot. They're shooting at the empire's feet. They are the part of the head of the empire, and they're the hand of the empire, and they're shooting at the empire's foot. By going rogue, remember it was the term, especially in the West, they were using for rogue nations. Rogue nation, what is a rogue nation? That goes against, the will of the many, correct? What is more telling with regards to the status of Uncle Sam's managers as being a rogue nation? What is more telling that every few days you have to pull out your veto power and use it and show the middle finger to everybody in the United Nations? If you have to use that often, that means you're the rogue nation. You are the rogue nation. If you do it with your gang, Israel and Palau and Nauru and Micronesia and the fucking British, this is the gang. If you have to veto every other day, then welcome to the status of rogue nation. And eventually, being a lobbyist also go out of business. Why? Because there's so many ex-politicians that come out from the system. After 6 years as a representative, you're out. After 12 years as a senator, 10 years as a senator, you're out. There are so many senators and so many representatives that have to leave their seat, that they overcrowd the lobbying business. For every politician, now you have like 3 lobbyists for pharmaceuticals. In that case, it's going to be 30 lobbyists. 30 people trying to make a living as lobbyists, with these green politicians who are coming in, who are also very determined and not corrupt yet. So it would be a fiasco, but eventually the lobbying business has to, go out of business as well, because who wants to babysit all these fresh representatives who come in every year, and many of them will, chat and talk and give interviews and screw things up, so might as well try not to create any more liability for ourselves, so lobbying as a business model goes out of business. Green representatives coming in with fresh ideas and no lobbyist. That sounds very good, doesn't it? Salute. And companies, if companies have to buy a new politician, new representative comes in every 6 years, they have to buy new representatives. They have to corrupt the new representatives. They won't last long. It becomes very expensive and very libelous because of all these talking mouths. So the corporations don't even want to lobby anymore. That's it. I think the public should start, people of every state should start gathering signatures at ground level. Politicians will never ever want to vote themselves out of office, and as you wouldn't, Mr. Sanders. So I think at the state level, at least one state should do this. As soon as one state does it, just like marijuana, as soon as one state does it, people bring it to vote and vote on it and enact it, force the politicians on term limits, other states will follow suit. One state has to do it. You want to start in Vermont, sir? It's a great idea. You be the politician who recognizes the answer and put the term limit for senators from Vermont, representative from Vermont, Vermont state representative, everyone. If they don't have a term limit already, put a term limit, bring it up to vote for a term limit in one vote. And then I'm sure you will win. Public will win. And as soon as Vermont does it, every other state, people of every other state will do it the same. This is good for the planet too. Good green representative who are coming in determined. They don't want to screw up their planet for their career. They do have a conscience because they're green. Green people, like children, they have conscience. It takes some time to corrupt people. Salute.